This year has been filled with difficulties for Stroll, which are occasionally allowed to eclipse his role as a race driver. Because of his father's ownership of Aston Martin, his status in F1 is frequently called into question, and the reality that he's still a high-quality driver is rarely recognised. And according to reports, Aston Martin driver Lance Stroll is considering a shock move to leave F1 to pursue a career as a professional tennis player. That isn't to suggest he hasn't delivered many results this season to appease his detractors, but on the rare times when he has equaled or even outperformed Fernando Alonso in the same car, think Spain, qualifying in Austria and the sprint, Stroll doesn't appear to win over many supporters. This has left Stroll losing the love for the sport he once joined as one of the youngest ever. And now, rumours are emerging that Lance actually never really wanted to drive in F1 and would have rather done something else, like being a tennis player. This has prompted many media to talk about his future in F1, with people like David Croft openly questioning if F1 still has a place for Lance Stroll. I do wonder, he's the one driver on the grid that you think you are guaranteed a job as long as your dad is there. We've never actually talked about contracts for Lance Stroll, said Sky Sports commentator David Croft on their podcast. We've never looked at his future elsewhere. But I just have a little feeling that in about a year and a half's time, Lance Stroll will race his last race in Formula 1 and go off and do something else, said Croft. I just think he's losing his mojo. I don't think Formula 1 was a sport he wanted to go into when he was younger. Croft believes he's since lost his way. I'm not saying he's not enjoying driving in Formula 1. I think there are times he is. But I think I look at him sometimes and think, you want to be doing something else, don't you? I want to see the Lance Stroll back that turned up in Bahrain, because I think he's lost his way a little bit. I think he's lost his mojo, and whatever's happened, Lance just doesn't seem to be as motivated now as he was at the start of the season. The Canadian, although not always evenly motivated, has had some success since joining the grid with the Williams team in 2017, with 3 podium finishes and a memorable pole position for the 2020 Turkish Grand Prix, but he has yet to establish himself as a future world champion. Stroll fared well alongside 4-time champion Sebastian Vettel in 2021 and 2022, but is struggling with 2-time world champion Fernando Alonso in 2023. While Alonso has 6 podium finishes this season, Stroll has yet to finish higher than 4th and is 102 points behind his teammate in the drivers' standings heading into the Dutch GP this weekend. Throughout his 7-year F1 career, Stroll's dedication has been called into doubt, with whispers spreading that he may be leaving the sport. Although a switch to the court battling the likes of Djokovic and Alcaraz seems far-fetched, it's not weird to imagine Stroll leaving F1 in a couple of years. Stroll never really seemed to have hype around his skill set, and has been driving with huge amounts of pressure ever since he set foot on the grid. Stroll has faced this pressure with some who believe he's only there because of his father Lawrence's money. Stroll's father has made significant investments in the teams for which Lance has driven, and he presently owns the Aston Martin Formula 1 team. Next to this, Stroll has to fight against 2-time world champion Fernando Alonso, who has reinvented himself this season by bringing silverware home in 6 out of 12 races. Lance states himself that he isn't affected by all the pressure. I don't really pay too much attention to that. I know more myself deep down when I do a good job and I extract the most from the car. Whether I'm ahead or behind them, I know when I should be patting myself on the shoulder, or the first one to kind of criticize myself in a constructive way. Learn from it and come back stronger. I know that there's been a lot of races where I felt like I maybe got the most out of the car, and he, Alonso, was a little bit quicker, and that's just how it is. And other times where I really drove well and I was in front of him a couple of times. So yeah, I'm proud of that. But for sure, he's been at a very high level throughout the year. He's made very few mistakes, no mistakes, and you have to give him credit for that, because he's been driving at an extremely high level and really getting the most out of the car every week. But like I said, I'm kind of more just focused on my own stuff. I'm not really listening to too much of that noise on the outside because it's F1. When you have a bad day, there's always going to be a reason why. When you have a good day, it's kind of just normal. I think that's how a lot of F1 is, or my experience of it over the years. But I just know that when I get the most out of myself and the day, I'm happy about that. I'm proud of that. And the days where I don't, I'm the first one to admit that and think to myself, I gotta come back stronger next week. He's just been at a really high level throughout the whole season and delivering that kind of A+ kind of performance every week. When I've had a few kind of A's, I've had some C's, and it's been a little bit more challenging, but a lot of racing left to go. And it's those C's, or maybe even lower on certain occasions, that have exposed him to even greater scrutiny this year. The fair way to look at it isn't about his position on the F1 grid. He has a pole position in the most difficult conditions and many podiums, with room to improve at only 22. but about whether he's doing enough to earn an Aston Martin seat if the company was owned differently. The car is the most powerful he's ever had, and although Alonso has 6 trophies from the first half of the season, Stroll hasn't even come close. That the squad is now competing with Mercedes and Ferrari for second place in the Constructors' Championship isn't boosting their chances. If there's one explanation for Stroll's massive points deficit this season, he's 102 points behind his teammate, it's that the car was at its most competitive when he was still recovering from injury, with the feeling he only got back to 100% in Monaco, by which time Alonso had 4 podiums under his belt. However, considering the way other weekends have gone, he believes there would still be a significant disadvantage regardless of his bike mishap. Hopefully we get back to a stage where we're that competitive. I do believe we can do that. I mean, it definitely didn't help to miss 250 laps of testing or whatever it was, and just be physically not at my best earlier on in the season. However, I think more than my injury, we probably got hurt more by bad fortune on the track. We were running 4th in Jeddah, and then we had the engine issue. We were competitive as a team in Miami, but we had a very bad qualifying. So we were on the back foot there on a track you can't overtake. Same thing in Monaco again, we hit Lando Norris's debris in Q2, and that was just the end of our session starting 14th, and at a track where you want to be up at the front. So those are some of our most competitive races, and I think we got more hurt by, I don't like to use the word, but I guess bad luck in a way. Misfortune, whatever you want to call it, rather than my injury. It's maybe the standard racing driver excuse to blame weaker results on circumstances rather than skill. But Stroll has the humility to see that even when he's put it all together, he's still lacking something this year. I think this year is honestly a lot of things that are out of our control, that have really affected us. And I think if we have clean weekends, the results will be better. That's what I honestly believe, but also just getting more out of the car and driving a bit faster because right now, Fernando has generally been faster than me. So I have to figure out how to go a little bit faster around the corners. It's simple, that's what we're here to do, right? We could chuckle at how simple that is, but not only would Stroll be faster in terms of lap time, but it would also be the quickest way for him to silence criticism. While Aston Martin team members say he's unappreciated for his work ethic and feedback to help improve the car, results are all that any driver will be truly judged on, and given that he believes the lack of those is partly out of his now fixed hands, Stroll has his own way of not letting scrutiny get to him. I don't read the stuff, so it doesn't frustrate me. You're on social media, I'm not during the week. I'm playing Xbox with my friends, or I used to mountain bike, but I'm not allowed to do that anymore. In winter I'm snowboarding, I'm on the golf course playing tennis. I'm doing other things that I can't really speak about in the interview. So I mean, there's not a lot of time to be on social media. There's a big wide world out there, that's where my head's at. Maybe this big world is distracting Lance too much in recent times. The question remains, is Stroll on the grid because he has undeniable talent, or because he's bought in? What are your thoughts? And could you see Lance quitting F1 in the upcoming years? Maybe to even try and battle it out on the centre court in Wimbledon? Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. The one thing is sure, this had to be one of the wildest driver rumours in recent years.